The sky didn't break when Superman arrived. Reality did. A red-blue blur ripped through Tokyo's skyline faster than thought itself. Heroes froze mid-battle. Quirks flickered like dying candles. Every sensor in Japan screamed, then went dead silent. This man had no quirk, no file, no ceiling. When Anoma lunged at fleeing students, the man of steel didn't move. He exhaled, one breath, and the monster became frozen sculpture. Shattered, gone. UA students trembled. Pro-heroes clutched their chests. Governments issued emergency protocols for a threat they couldn't classify. Because quirks defined this world's power structure, and he existed outside it completely. But here's what truly terrified them. Superman didn't demand worship, didn't seize control, didn't threaten. He simply said, "I'm here to help." And somehow, that promise shook hero society harder than any villain's war cry ever could. The sky above Tokyo shattered without warning. No earthquake preceded it. No villain announced themselves. The atmosphere simply tore open as something descended faster than human perception could register. A streak of impossible color burning through clouds like a comet refusing to die. Every quirk detection sensor in Japan screamed simultaneously, then failed. Heroes mid-patrol stumbled as an invisible pressure crushed the air from their lungs. Students at UA High clutched their chests without understanding why. Even underground, in chambers where sunlight had never reached, ancient villains paused their eternal scheming. Something fundamental had changed. The blur resolved into form above Shibuya Crossing, a man hovering without visible propulsion, cape settling around shoulders that seemed carved from mythology. Red and blue fabric caught the dying sunlight. An S-shaped emblem blazed across his chest like a warning nobody could read. Superman opened his eyes. The first thing he noticed was how loud this world felt. Not with sound, with intent. Every street below carried tension woven into its concrete bones. People moved like prey animals, glancing skyward, checking corners, measuring each step against invisible judgment. Power hummed beneath the surface of every interaction, quirks crackling like static electricity, waiting to discharge. This world measured worth through strength. He had seen civilizations built on that philosophy before. They always burned. Before comprehension settled, chaos erupted. A subway entrance exploded outward, concrete fragmenting as something massive clawed toward daylight. Gray flesh stretched over exposed muscle. Dead eyes held manufactured rage. The creature, Nomu, though Superman didn't know the classification yet, roared with vocal cords designed only for terror. Civilians scattered like leaves before a hurricane. Parents grabbed children. Elderly fell. Someone screamed a name that would never receive an answer. Heroes arrived within seconds. A man wreathed in flame launched himself forward, temperature spiking dangerously. Another hero threw ice constructs, trying to slow the monster's charge. Explosions decorated the air as a young patrol hero demonstrated more courage than strategy. Superman watched for exactly one heartbeat. The Noma's claws were 3 inches from a mother shielding her infant when time seemed to stop. Then the monster was embedded in the pavement, not destroyed, not bleeding, but pinned with precision that bordered on surgical. Every limb locked, every regeneration point compressed. Breathing maintained, threat eliminated. The heroes froze mid-attack. Flames died without targets. Ice melted in confusion. The young hero's explosion faded to smoke curling from trembling palms. Silence swallowed the intersection. Superman descended slowly, cape brushing the ground as he landed. He checked the mother first, elevated heartbeat, minor abrasions, infant crying, but uninjured. Then he scanned the perimeter. 17 civilians required medical attention. 3 had injuries beyond immediate self-care. He moved among them without asking permission. Broken bones were stabilized with gentle hands that could shatter mountains. A collapsed lung was relieved through pressure no human could have calculated. A child pinned beneath debris found herself lifted free by fingers that cradled her like glass. Through it all, Superman said nothing. The cameras caught everything. Within 90 seconds, footage saturated every network in Japan. Within 3 minutes, international feeds picked up the signal. Within 5 minutes, the internet infrastructure began buckling under traffic no server farm had anticipated. Hashtags exploded across platforms. Hashtag unknown hero. Hashtag no quirk detected. Hashtag what is it? Hashtag stronger than all might. That last one spread fastest and cut deepest. At a hospital bed in an undisclosed location, Toshinori watched the footage on a phone screen too small for the moment it contained. His emaciated fingers trembled. His hollowed chest tightened around lungs that barely functioned. He recognized the posture immediately. The restraint, the deliberate gentleness hiding power that could reshape geography. The way this stranger moved through chaos like water through cracks, filling every gap, solving every problem, never once seeking recognition. That man, All Might whispered to an empty room, is what I always pretended to be. The admission tasted like blood and relief intertwined. Across the city, in depths where hope went to die, All for One received reports from 17 different surveillance sources simultaneously. His ancient face, rebuilt countless times, sustained by stolen quirks and hatred refined over centuries, twisted into something resembling delight. No quirk factor, he murmured, fingers dancing across holographic data. No biological mutation, no activation trigger, power that simply exists. Dr. Garaki adjusted his glasses nervously. Our sensors can't even measure his upper limits. Every algorithm returns infinity errors. All for One laughed, a sound that made nearby Noma shudder in their containment pods. Infinity, he repeated. How delicious. How utterly wonderfully terrifying. For the first time in decades, the immortal villain felt something he had forgotten existed. Anticipation. Above the city, Superman hovered where cameras couldn't reach, listening to a world trying to categorize him. News anchors debated his origin. Analysts questioned his legality. Politicians demanded answers no one possessed. Through it all, one sound rose above the noise. A child crying in a hospital bed, afraid of the monster she had seen. Broken bones were stabilized with gentle hands that could shatter mountains. A collapsed lung was relieved through pressure no human could have calculated. A child pinned beneath debris found herself lifted free by fingers that cradled her like glass. Through it all, Superman said nothing. The cameras caught everything. Within 90 seconds, footage saturated every network in Japan. Within 3 minutes, international feeds picked up the signal. Within 5 minutes, the internet infrastructure began buckling under traffic no server farm had anticipated. Hashtags exploded across platforms. Hashtag unknown hero. Hashtag no quirk detected. Hashtag what is it? Hashtag stronger than all might. That last one spread fastest and cut deepest. At a hospital bed in an undisclosed location, Toshinori watched the footage on a phone screen too small for the moment it contained. His emaciated fingers trembled. His hollowed chest tightened around lungs that barely functioned. He recognized the posture immediately. The restraint, the deliberate gentleness hiding power that could reshape geography. The way this stranger moved through chaos like water through cracks, filling every gap, solving every problem, never once seeking recognition. That man, All Might whispered to an empty room, is what I always pretended to be. The admission tasted like blood and relief intertwined. Across the city, in depths where hope went to die, All for One received reports from 17 different surveillance sources simultaneously. His ancient face, rebuilt countless times, sustained by stolen quirks and hatred refined over centuries, twisted into something resembling delight. No quirk factor, he murmured, fingers dancing across holographic data. No biological mutation, no activation trigger, power that simply exists. Dr. Garaki adjusted his glasses nervously. Our sensors can't even measure his upper limits. Every algorithm returns infinity errors. All for One laughed, a sound that made nearby Noma shudder in their containment pods. Infinity, he repeated. How delicious. How utterly wonderfully terrifying. For the first time in decades, The immortal villain felt something he had forgotten existed: anticipation. Above the city, Superman hovered where cameras couldn't reach, listening to a world trying to categorize him. News anchors debated his origin. Analysts questioned his legality. Politicians demanded answers no one possessed. Through it all, one sound rose above the noise: a child crying in a hospital bed, afraid of the monster she had seen. Superman was beside her before her next breath. "You're safe now," he said softly. "I promise." She looked up at him with eyes that had witnessed horror no child should know. "Are you an angel?" Superman smiled, not for cameras, not for history, just for her. "No," he replied, "just someone who wants to help." When he left, the child slept peacefully for the first time in weeks, and the world continued spinning toward a future it couldn't possibly predict. 3 weeks transformed Tokyo into a city holding its breath. Superman didn't patrol traditionally, he listened. His consciousness expanded across urban soundscapes, filtering emergency frequencies, heartbeat patterns, structural stress indicators. When disaster struck, he arrived before first responders finished receiving calls. When villains attacked, they found themselves restrained before completing their monologues. He never posed for cameras. He never granted interviews. He never explained himself. This drove the Hero Public Safety Commission toward collective psychological breakdown. The emergency session convened in a bunker designed to survive nuclear strikes. Analysts covered walls with data visualizations that answered nothing. Security footage played on repeat, each viewing revealing new impossibilities. Commission President Kira Tanaka pressed her palms against the table hard enough to whiten her knuckles. 217 incidents resolved. 0 casualties. 0 property damage beyond initial villain attacks. And 0 cooperation with regulatory frameworks. "He's not breaking laws," a legal advisor offered weakly. "Technically, quirk registration only applies to..." "He doesn't have a quirk." Tanaka's voice cracked the room's composure. "That's the problem. Every law we have assumes biological power sources. This is something else entirely." Hawks leaned against the back wall, feathers twitching with barely contained amusement. "Maybe we should focus less on controlling him and more on understanding why he's here." "Understanding doesn't maintain order," Tanaka replied coldly. "Regulation does." The commission authorized surveillance protocols that would have violated 17 international agreements. Facial recognition satellites, behavioral prediction algorithms, contingency plans ranging from diplomatic to extreme. Superman noticed everything. He let them watch anyway. At UA High School, the impact manifested differently. Students who had trained their entire lives toward professional heroism suddenly questioned what that meant. Midoriya Izuku filled 17 notebooks in 3 weeks. His analysis went beyond quirk documentation. He studied patterns of restraint, hierarchies of response, the philosophical framework underlying every choice Superman made. He could solve everything himself, Midoriya muttered during lunch, ignoring food growing cold. But he waits. He lets local heroes arrive. He steps back when they can handle situations alone. Urarek appeared over his shoulder at diagrams that resembled theological arguments more than combat analysis. Maybe he doesn't want to replace anyone. That's exactly it. Midoriya's eyes blazed with understanding. He's not trying to be the strongest hero. He's trying to make other heroes stronger. Across the table, Bakugo Katsuki stabbed his meal with enough force to bend the fork. He hadn't spoken about Superman since the news broke. His classmates had learned not to mention the subject. But at night, alone in his room, Bakugo watched footage on repeat. He watched the moment Superman caught his explosion during their encounter, absorbed it like a warm breeze, redirected his momentum so gently he didn't even bruise. He watched power so absolute it could afford perfect mercy. And for the first time since awakening his quirk, Katsuki Bakugo wondered if strength alone meant anything at all. The encounter had happened during Superman's first campus visit. Aizawa had activated his erasure quirk immediately upon Superman's landing, a reasonable precaution that accomplished nothing whatsoever. "There's nothing to erase," Aizawa had muttered. bloodshot eyes widening behind capture gear. His power isn't biological. It's just him. Bakugo had attacked without thinking, explosions detonating against palms calloused by years of training. Superman hadn't blocked, hadn't counterattacked, hadn't even tensed. He had simply caught Bakugo's wrist mid-blast, absorbed the explosion completely, and guided him to a safe landing. "You're strong," Superman had said, voice carrying no condescension. "But strength without control hurts people you're trying to protect." Those words burned hotter than any explosion Bakugo had ever produced. Meanwhile, the professional hero community fractured along predictable lines. Endeavor doubled his patrol hours, pushing subordinates past healthy limits, desperate to prove traditional heroism still held value. His flames burned hotter than ever, and accomplished less than ever, as Superman resolved incidents before Endeavor could arrive. "We're becoming obsolete," Endeavor growled during an agency meeting his sidekicks would remember for years. "Everything we sacrificed, everything we built, meaningless because one man decided to play God." Hawks watched from the window, silhouette framed against a city that no longer needed saving the old way. Maybe gods are exactly what heroes were always supposed to be. We just forgot. The philosophical divide deepened daily. Some heroes embraced the shift, studying Superman's methods, adapting their approaches, focusing on community support rather than combat dominance. Others resented the implication that decades of tradition required revision. The public, as always, chose spectacle over nuance. Superman merchandise appeared before anyone could trademark it. Children wore capes to school. Parents named newborns after a man whose actual name no one knew. And through it all, Superman continued listening. He heard the Commission's surveillance algorithms calculating threat assessments. He heard heroes arguing about relevance in locker rooms. He heard villains whispering new strategies in shadows they believed were private. He heard a world struggling to understand something it had never imagined possible. One evening, All Might found him hovering above UA's main tower, cape rippling in winds that seemed to obey aesthetic preference rather than meteorology. Beautiful view, All Might offered, landing heavily on the rooftop. His weakened form had become public knowledge, but standing near Superman made the contrast painfully stark. Peaceful, Superman agreed, not turning around. From up here, you can almost forget how much fear lives down there. All Might joined him at the edge, gazing across a city that had once worshipped his image. This world, we built it on rankings, on competition, on the idea that someone had to be strongest and everyone else had to chase that standard. I've seen that model before. Superman's voice carried centuries of weight. It creates heroes who fight for position instead of people. Villains who feel justified because the system already treated strength as morality. Can it change? Superman finally turned, meeting All Might's eyes with something resembling hope tempered by experience. Every world can change. The question is whether it will, and what breaks first. Below them, a siren wailed. Superman vanished before the sound finished, leaving All Might alone with questions that wouldn't let him sleep. And in the shadows of the city, darker forces than mere villains began preparing for a future they intended to control, no matter what impossible obstacles stood in their way. The attack came without warning because warning would have been meaningless. Every screen in Tokyo flickered simultaneously: phones, billboards, television sets, computer monitors. Static resolved into a voice that older heroes recognized with visceral horror. All for one didn't appear on camera. He didn't need to. This world worships strength. The distorted voice purred through millions of speakers. It ranks its saviors like livestock. It measures heroism through popularity metrics and merchandise sales. So let's conduct an experiment. Prison systems across Japan experienced simultaneous failures. Security protocols collapsed. Cell doors opened. Hundreds of villains walked free into a world that had forgotten their names. But they weren't ordered to attack. They were ordered to scatter. Within minutes, threat reports overwhelmed every agency in the country. Villains appeared randomly at schools, hospitals, shopping centers, residential neighborhoods. No pattern, no coordination, no way to predict where the next incident would erupt. The Commission's carefully constructed response frameworks crumbled instantly. Superman heard it all. He hovered above the chaos, eyes closed, processing more information than any human mind could comprehend. Heartbeats, screaming, structural failures, quirk activations. Every sound painted a picture of a city being dismantled through precision rather than force. He couldn't be everywhere at once. All for One had designed the attack around that assumption. For 3 agonizing seconds, Superman considered his options. He could prioritize, save the most vulnerable, let professionals handle manageable situations. He could try to locate All for One directly, cut off the head of the operation. Or he could do something no one expected. Superman opened a communication channel he had never used before. His voice broadcast across every hero frequency in Japan. "This is Superman. I'm coordinating response efforts. All available heroes, report your positions and capabilities. We're going to save everyone together." Silence. Then a flood of responses. He directed traffic with precision that would have required supercomputers and hours of planning. Endeavor, North District, structural fires. Hawks, aerial reconnaissance and rapid evacuation. UA students, civilian protection and first aid. Smaller agencies filled gaps he identified in real time. For the first time, the hero community operated as a single organism. Villains expecting chaos found organized resistance. Attacks meant to overwhelm instead encountered coordinated response. Lives that should have been lost were saved by heroes arriving exactly when and where they were needed. The tide turned within hours instead of days. But All for One had prepared contingencies. Deep underground, in chambers designed to contain gods, the final Nomu activated. Not a mass-produced weapon, but a singular creation. Adaptive physiology that learned from every attack. Regeneration that accelerated under stress. Intelligence that burned behind artificial eyes with genuine malevolence. This creature wasn't meant to win. It was meant to reveal. Superman felt its emergence, like a wound tearing open in the city's flesh. He arrived to find destruction beyond anything he had witnessed in this world. Buildings crumbling, heroes scattered unconscious, civilians fleeing through streets choked with dust. The Nomu turned to face him. Their first exchange leveled a city block. Superman absorbed the impact, redirecting force away from population centers. But the creature learned immediately. Its second attack came faster. Its third carried adaptive countermeasures he hadn't anticipated. For the first time since arriving in this world, Superman experienced something resembling difficulty. All for One watched through hidden cameras, analytical and hungry. "Show me your limits," he whispered to screens displaying combat data. "Show me where the god becomes mortal." The battle evolved through 17 distinct phases. The Nomu adapted to heat vision. Superman switched to freeze breath. It developed resistance to physical strikes. Superman used precise pressure points. Every solution birthed new problems. 23 minutes into the engagement, something unprecedented happened. Superman's cape tore. Just an edge, fabric worn through by accumulated stress, rather than any single attack. But cameras caught it. The world saw it. And villains everywhere realized something they had refused to believe. He wasn't invincible. He was just unwilling to let anyone see him struggle until protecting them required otherwise. Superman noticed the shift in public attention. He understood its implications, and he made a choice that would define his legacy in this world forever. He stopped trying to win. Instead, he spoke. "You were created," Superman said, voice calm despite exertion. "But that doesn't mean you're owned. You have intelligence, awareness, the capacity to choose something different." The Nomu hesitated, just for a fraction of a moment, processing input its programming hadn't anticipated. Superman used that fraction perfectly, not to destroy, but to disable. Pressure points designed for this specific physiology. Structural locks that immobilized without damaging. Precision so perfect it bordered on compassion. The Nomu collapsed, alive but inert. Data transmission to all for one severed. When heroes finally arrived, they found Superman kneeling beside the fallen creature, hand resting on its chest to monitor breathing. His cape was torn. His posture suggested exhaustion he would never admit. But his eyes held only concern for his fallen opponent. Endeavor stared at the scene without words. Hawks landed silently, feathers drooping. Aizawa surveyed damage that should have killed hundreds and found everyone alive. He could have ended it faster, Hawks finally said. Killed it immediately and saved himself the trouble. Yes, Aizawa replied quietly. That's exactly the point. That night, the commission issued formal classifications they hoped would establish control. Superman was designated an unlicensed global variable, subject to monitoring, restricted from certain jurisdictions, required to coordinate with official channels. Superman read the document carefully. Then he folded it neatly and handed it back. I won't be owned, he said simply, but I won't abandon people who need help either. If that's incompatible with your regulations, the regulations need revision. He left before anyone could respond. And across the world, people who had never questioned authority began wondering why heroes 6 months reshaped the landscape of heroism in ways no one had predicted. Superman didn't lead the transformation, he demonstrated it. Every rescue emphasized protection over combat. Every intervention prioritized civilian safety over villain capture. Every public appearance reinforced a message that spread faster than any marketing campaign could have engineered. Heroes existed to serve, not to dominate. The younger generation absorbed this philosophy like parched earth absorbing rain. UA's curriculum underwent radical revision. Less emphasis on quirk maximization, more focus on crisis response coordination. Students who had trained to be warriors learned to become guardians. Midoriya Izuku embodied the shift most visibly. His combat training continued, but his focus expanded: emergency medicine, structural engineering, psychological first aid. He studied Superman's methods with religious intensity, but more importantly, he understood the principles underlying them. It's not about being the strongest, he explained to classmates during a study session. It's about being exactly as strong as each situation requires. Nothing more, nothing less. Bakugo Katsuki listened without contributing, which itself represented profound change. His explosions had become more controlled over months. His combat style incorporated restraint he would have mocked as weakness a year earlier. He still chased strength, but the definition had transformed. Strong enough to protect everyone, not strong enough to dominate everyone. Professional heroes adapted unevenly. Agencies that embraced the new paradigm thrived. Public trust surged when heroes prioritized community connection over flashy combat. Agencies that resisted found themselves increasingly irrelevant as the public's expectations evolved. Endeavor stood at the crossroads longest. His entire identity was built on surpassing all might, becoming the strongest, claiming the top rank, proving that dedication could overcome natural gifts. Superman's arrival had rendered that goal meaningless overnight. But 6 months of watching changed something fundamental. He saw Superman defer to local heroes whenever possible. He saw godlike power exercised with humility that seemed impossible. He watched the #1 ranking he had coveted his entire life become a footnote to something more important. One evening, Endeavor approached Superman directly. They met on a rooftop overlooking the city Endeavor had protected for decades, a city that barely noticed his efforts anymore. I hated you, Endeavor admitted without preamble. Everything I sacrificed, everything I destroyed in myself and my family to reach the top, you made it worthless. Superman listened without interruption. But I watched you, Endeavor continued. 6 months of watching a god choose to be a servant instead of a king. And I started wondering if I had been climbing the wrong mountain my entire life. The mountain was never the problem, Superman replied. Only what you thought waited at the summit. Endeavor's flames flickered, not with rage, but with something quieter. I don't know how to be what you are. I've been a weapon too long to become a shield. Then start small. Superman's voice carried no judgment. One person at a time. One choice at a time. Redemption isn't a destination, it's a direction. When Endeavor returned to his agency that night, his sidekicks noticed something different in his posture. Less tension, more purpose. He never spoke about the conversation, but his methods changed permanently. Meanwhile, All for One prepared his masterstroke. The scattered villain attacks had been information gathering. The Nomu engagement had been capability testing. 6 months of analysis had revealed everything he needed to know about Superman's psychology. The Man of Steel had no physical weaknesses this world could exploit. But his heart was another matter. The trap was elegant in its cruelty. Simultaneous attacks targeting children, not randomly, but specifically. Schools, orphanages, hospitals. Every location Superman had visited during his time in this world. Every child he had personally comforted became a target. The message was clear: save them all, or choose who dies. Superman heard the attacks begin across the city. 23 locations, 47 seconds between each assault. Timing calculated to make comprehensive response impossible. For one crystalline moment, he felt something approaching despair. Then he remembered what 6 months had built. Heroes mobilized before Superman could issue instructions. Students deployed according to training he had inspired. The commission, finally reluctantly, coordinated rather than controlled. Every person he had touched in this world became part of his response. Superman moved faster than he ever had before. But he didn't move alone. 12 locations were secured by professional heroes before Superman arrived. 8 more were protected by UA students working in perfect coordination. 3 required Superman's direct intervention, which he provided with speed that strained even his capabilities. Every child was saved. Every attack was contained. Every villain was captured alive. The operation's success broadcasted across global networks. Not as Superman's triumph, but as heroism's evolution. A world that had worshipped individual strength learned the power of collective purpose. All for One watched the results with an expression no one had seen him wear before. Frustration. He's made them into something unified, the ancient villain muttered. Something that doesn't require his presence to function. Dr. Garaki trembled nearby. Shall we proceed with alternate strategies? All for One was silent for a long moment. No, he finally replied. It's time to end this personally. The invitation arrived through channels no one should have been able to access. Coordinates to All for One's deepest stronghold. A single request. Come alone. Let's finish what we started. Superman considered the obvious trap for approximately 3 seconds. Then he went anyway. The underground fortress had been designed to intimidate gods. Halls stretched impossibly long, lined with preserved Nomu in stasis pods. An army waiting for commands that would never come. Screens displayed surveillance footage from every corner of Japan, every hero agency, every moment of hope the world had experienced since Superman's arrival. All for One waited in the central chamber, ancient and monstrous, sustained by stolen power and hatred refined over centuries. You came alone, he observed as Superman descended into the light. How disappointingly heroic. You wanted to talk. Superman's feet touched the ground without sound. So talk. All for One gestured at surrounding screens. This world was built on a lie. Quirks appeared randomly, but society pretended they created meritocracy. The strong rose, the weak served, and everyone agreed this was natural order. I've seen systems like that before, Superman replied. They always collapse eventually. Yes, All for One smiled. Usually, I'm the one collapsing them. But you're trying to replace the system with something else entirely. Cooperation instead of competition. Service instead of dominance. He stepped closer, power radiating from a body that had outlived empires. Don't you understand? Humanity doesn't want to be saved. They want to be ruled. They crave hierarchy because hierarchy tells them where they belong. Without rankings, without competition, without someone on top to worship and resent, they'll tear themselves apart. Superman met the ancient villain's gaze without flinching. "You're wrong," he said simply. "Humanity craves connection, not domination. They compete because systems reward competition. Give them structures that reward cooperation, and they'll cooperate." Naive. All for one's voice dripped contempt. "I've watched civilizations rise and fall for longer than your species has existed. Every time they try your approach, someone like me emerges to remind them of their true nature." "Then, maybe," Superman replied, "the problem isn't human nature. Maybe it's people like you who keep preventing them from growing beyond it." All for One attacked without warning. The assault combined every quirk he had stolen over centuries: temporal distortions, reality warps, force projections that would have destroyed cities. The chamber shattered. The fortress trembled. Mountains above shifted under the impact. Superman absorbed everything, not by matching power with power, but by enduring. Every attack that could have devastated populations instead broke against a man who refused to retaliate with equal destruction. "Why won't you fight?" All for One demanded, power escalating beyond sanity. "Why won't you show this world what you really are?" "Because what I am," Superman replied, voice steady despite forces that could crack planets, "is someone who knows that power means nothing without restraint." He moved. One strike, precisely calculated, exactly sufficient. All for One stolen quirks destabilized simultaneously. Power he had accumulated over lifetimes began unraveling. The ancient villain collapsed, suddenly mortal, suddenly old, suddenly facing consequences he had evaded for centuries. "Impossible," he gasped. "No force could. I didn't use force." Superman knelt beside his fallen enemy. "I used precision. Your quirks were never meant to coexist. You forced them together through will alone. I simply reminded them that they could exist separately." All for One stared up at the man who had defeated him without hatred, without vengeance, without any of the violence he had expected. "You could rule them," he whispered. "You could become what I never managed to be. Why choose servitude?" Superman stood slowly. "Because I've seen what rulers become, and I've seen what servants can build." He lifted All for One, gently, despite everything, and carried him toward the surface, toward authorities who would finally have the chance to pursue justice, toward a world that would never fear this particular shadow again. Behind them, the fortress collapsed, and above, sunlight. 1 year after Superman's arrival, the world had become unrecognizable. Hero rankings were abolished. The commission restructured around community service rather than population control. Laws evolved to support heroes who prioritized protection over combat metrics. UA High graduated its first class trained under the new philosophy. Students who understood that power without purpose was meaningless. Heroes who measured success by lives improved rather than villains defeated. Midoriya Izuku stood among them, finally ready to inherit One for All, not as a weapon to surpass previous holders, but as a responsibility to exceed their compassion. All Might retired peacefully, smiling without the burden that had crushed him for decades. The symbol of peace had been replaced by something better, a generation that didn't need symbols because they had become the change themselves. And Superman? He stood on a rooftop one final morning, watching a city that had learned to save itself. His work here was finished. Other worlds needed attention. Other civilizations required the same gentle push toward their better nature. He didn't announce his departure, didn't give speeches or accept awards. He simply rose into the sky and kept rising. Below, Midoriya watched the red and blue figure disappear into clouds that seemed reluctant to let him go. "Thank you," he whispered to a man who could hear everything. And somewhere above the atmosphere, Superman smiled. Because the best thing a hero could do wasn't save people forever. It was teach them to save themselves. And this world finally had learned. The end.